We might get the impression from that first reading from the prophet Ezekiel that we're really kind of in charge of correcting each other's faults and maybe even being kind of like the morality police, where we go after people when they have wrongdoing committed in their life. And yet Jesus clarifies the situation in the gospel today, for he in many ways defines the wrongdoings in terms of what it does to our relationships, how it disrupts the peace within a family or a community. And so he makes sure that it is not just about having a kind of ethic of the gotcha moment in which we're looking for the faults of others just to be able to pounce on them, but rather we are to be concerned with the wrongdoing that disrupts the harmony, the unity within our own relationships. And even then, Jesus makes it very clear that we are not to take advantage of others by telling others about their faults or gossiping about them. But he says, go quietly to your brother in that moment, in a patient way, with the simple goal, not just of telling him what he did wrong, but rather of restoring the peace and the harmony that's there. It is a kind of approach, a pastoral approach, that is to lead to making sure that the damage is repaired, that the unity can be restored. And then again, if he doesn't listen to you in that moment, then take two others with you. And then even in that, tell it to the church. So you see here a very disciplined way in which we are to look at helping to restore the unity that has been fractured in the fault that has been committed. Not just catching someone in an act in which they've done something wrong. In fact, we know that Jesus did not feel that this was the proper approach as those men brought that woman caught in adultery, in the very act of committing adultery. Jesus wasn't about catching people in a gotcha moment, but rather to restore unity within a community, and then also to do it in a very patient way. And notice also, even if they don't listen to the church, what does Jesus say? Treat them like a Gentile or a tax collector. Well, how did Jesus treat the Gentiles and the tax collectors? Well, one of the tax collectors became, in fact, an apostle, Matthew. And we see as well the way that he treated Zacchaeus, who was also one who collected taxes. He had dinner with him. And we also know that Jesus treated, as we heard in a couple of weeks ago about the Syrophoenician woman, the Gentile woman, the woman who was not part of the Jewish community, how he went out of his way. So again, we see in the way that Jesus teaches us today that when wrongdoing happens in a way that disrupts the unity in our family, we are to do everything to go overboard, to try to restore it, not just to tell the person that they've done wrong, but to restore the unity that's there. I think that's so very important in our day, where we know that it is very easy to look at the faults of other people in kind of a gotcha moment in which we lord it over them. But Jesus tells us, forget about the resentment, forget about the payback, forget about catching people in wrongdoing so that we can kind of lord it over to them. That is not the gospel way. And he says, much like we hear in the second reading today, that whatever we owe to anyone, it is love. It is a way in which we look for a way in which the unity within a community and our relationship can be treasured, and when it is fractured, it can be restored. So today, let's make sure that we are true to be disciples of Jesus. When we come across wrongdoing in life, to always look for a way in which we can restore the unity that has been fractured, doing it patiently, doing it in a way that does not lord it over the person who did something wrong, but rather do it out of love, so that in fact the individual can be restored in the right relationship with us and with God, even going overboard as Jesus did, in order to make that happen.